And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because if you are here to accomplish something significant, you have to stop setting goals. Goal setting is not going to get it done. You need something far more powerful than just simple goal setting. Now, am I saying don't set goals at all, period, never again? No, what I'm saying is don't rely on goal setting to get you to where you want to be in life. Instead of setting goals, what's up, my friends? JT DeBolt with you today for the True Driven Podcast, the podcast for the few, the true, the driven, those amazing people we call the True Driven. And I say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whatever time it is for you, no matter where you might be tuning in from on the Big Blue Marble. Thanks as always for joining me here for the True Driven Podcast. You can catch us, of course, on Spotify or Apple iTunes or podcast or whatever the heck they're calling it, as well as YouTube, youtube.com/JT DeBolt. Thing I love about YouTube is that's going to be my primary platform moving forward, at least for a while. I'm on the other social stuff, Instagram, etc. But YouTube is where I put a lot of my more deeper content, I guess you would call it. Able to go a little bit deeper, not just here with the podcast, but with some of the other stuff. Also going to be having some other resources coming out for you guys. So best place to kind of listen up for that stuff is on YouTube. So I want to talk today about something that I have been passionate about pretty much my entire career, and something that it's kind of weird. It's almost like it naturally sort of organically grew on its own. But I think there was a seed planted a long time ago by somebody, not sure who it was, but somebody who kind of put this in the back of my mind, and it just felt right. You ever had one of those times where somebody goes, "Hey man, you're a great handyman," or "You're a great so-and-so." And all of a sudden you're like, "Yeah, dude, I'm the go-to guy," or whatever it is, that particular title or that label that somebody puts on you, and it just feels right. It's like that perfect fit, right? Like those awesome work boots or that jacket that you love to wear, right? Well, that's kind of what happened with this, and I'll get into that in a moment. The reason I'm sharing this with you is if you are an entrepreneur that's building a business and has been for a while, or maybe you're kind of new into you're in that newer phase, or maybe you're starting something new. You're one of those seasoned entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, and this is one of those new things you're putting into your portfolio. You know how difficult it is in the beginning to get traction, to build that momentum, to kind of get the thing moving, right? And of course, for you seasoned guys that have been around the block, you know that you kind of just go through those seasons of your business where sometimes things are clicking, sometimes things are hitting, and you're like, "Oh, man, this is awesome." And then other times it's like you're dragging a Mack truck through the dirt, through the mud, and it feels like you're doing all the work, and the work itself that should be done by the machine itself is not being done. These things happen. And I'll give you kind of an insight into what I have found to be really that kind of multi-million-dollar approach to building something significant. Now, I'm going to speak in business terms quite often, but this is not just applicable to business. I say that because I speak a lot to entrepreneurs and executives, people who are kind of building and working inside of businesses. But this doesn't have to be a business related conversation. This can apply to your physical fitness. This can apply to your relationships. You could even, if you think about it, apply it to a spiritual practice. It's really meant for anything that is significant, something that takes time, something that takes work, something that takes a concerted amount of effort and probably some strategic thought in order to accomplish it. This isn't one of those, here's what I need to get from the grocery store, right? Or this is what I think I'm going to do this week for my overall, workout plan. It's probably going to be something a little bit more intense than that, a little bit more, intensive in terms of the level of detail that's required, the level of work, effort, and so on. Way back when I first started my career, I had gotten out of the military, out of the Navy, and this was back, man. As this podcast comes out, we are literally coming up on, it's crazy. I can't even wrap my head around this. Coming up on the 16-year anniversary of me getting out of the U.S. Navy. That was September 30th, 2008 is when I left the U.S. Navy. Left the steady paycheck, left all the benefits, medical, dental, all that kind of stuff. Had all of that safety net removed just like that. Drove through the front gate at NAS North Island, and that was it. That was the end of my career. And what's crazy about that, what I don't think a lot of people understand, is when you leave the military, there's no kind of like catching up with your coworkers on the weekends. Like, you're cut off from all email. You lose your security clearance. You lose all that kind of stuff. It's just sort of like you're just untethered. You're out there on your own. And so for a lot of us veterans, especially, that could be a very scary thing. But I have found this to be true for athletes or anybody who makes a major career move, whether they were downsized or whatever they call it nowadays, removed from their, fired, if you will, cut loose. When you work at something at a high level for a long time, and then that's no longer part of what you do, it feels like a part of you dies. Because quite frankly, it does. I'm a former naval aviator. That word former's a little bit bitter of a pill to swallow. Sometimes thinking about it, it's like, am I living in the rearview mirror when I think about those days? Trying to grasp onto those last, feelings and flavors of what it was like to live at that high level? Or am I able to extract some of those valuable lessons of leadership and execution at a high level, working with high performance teams at the tip of the spear? Am I able to do that and transfer that knowledge to other people? That's the difference. And so when I made that transition in 2008, I went into something maybe you guys have heard of called network marketing, MLM, multi-level marketing, these kinds of things. It wasn't really my cup of tea. I did it a little bit reluctantly and against my own will. My wife got into it and thought, oh, this would be great. This will be our next chapter after the military. She was military too. She was my navigator. So that's how we actually met, learned how to, we flew missions together, started off as teammates, became friends, and then obviously started dating, got married, had kids. Here we are. But here's what's interesting about all of that. In the process of doing a business model that I had no real joy and love for, I did find one thing that I really loved, and that was helping people overcome themselves, helping them develop the leadership skills required to operate at a high level. Because in the military, I was accustomed to what I like to call high stakes leadership. Like, we had to get it right. Otherwise, people die, or millions of dollars of equipment get damaged or destroyed. There were just so many things about a military mission, even a training mission. Don't even worry about like a full-on combat mission, but just a simple training mission that required absolute focus and excellent execution. It required excellent leadership from everybody from the lowest rank all the way up to the commanding officer. Every single person that was involved with either the planning, the execution, the debrief, whatever that might be, had to be on their game at all times. That was high stakes. And now I look at folks who are building businesses and they're like, I got to make this thing work or else. And part of me wants to say, or else what? Nobody's going to die here. You might think you're going to die because you've invested a lot of money into it or a lot of time, or maybe this is your intellectual property and you're passionate about it and you don't want that to go to waste. You don't want that to be stolen and you don't want that to go somewhere else. I understand that. But there's a difference between something that's important to you, and there's a difference between that becoming a hindrance and it becoming your actual lifestyle, the thing that you pursue, the thing that you build, the thing that's not just feeds you and feed your family, but actually feed your soul. The difference between one is that one is a goal. You want to achieve a goal. I want to make a certain amount of money. I want to launch a business. I want to write a book. I want to create a coaching program. I want to help a certain amount of people lose weight. Whatever those things are, those become kind of goal-oriented behaviors. And what's funny is, if you're an entrepreneur, you already know this, but if you're not, you'll hear a lot of this talk in entrepreneur spaces. They talk about setting SMART goals. It's the most ridiculous framework in the world to set a goal. SMART goals. They use the word SMART, S.M.A.R.T, specific, measurable, all these things. I don't even remember what all it is. It's so inane and so crazy. I actually took that and created something completely different. I'm not going to get into that today, but it's something that's a lot more applicable. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because if you are here to accomplish something significant, you have to stop setting goals. Goal setting is not going to get it done. You need something far more powerful than just simple goal setting. Now, am I saying don't set goals at all, period, never again? No, what I'm saying is don't rely on goal setting to get you to where you want to be in life. Instead of setting goals, you need to set standards. And not just setting standards, but you have to make it your mission. There's a big difference. Now, I've told this story from stage many times, but I talk about how my dream in life when I was a kid was to become a U.S. Navy Blue Angel. I wanted to fly fighter jets in the U.S. Navy, which sounds cool to some people. Some people, they're like, yeah, whatever. But for me, it was everything. So I want you guys thinking about this. What in your life, either right now or in your past, has been an all-consuming desire? Something that you want worse than anything. Something you want more than anything. Maybe it is to write a book. Maybe it is to launch a business or another business. Maybe it is to become the CEO. Maybe you're, somewhere in the middle management side. You want to work your way up to being the head honcho. Maybe it's to run that ultra marathon or that Ironman, whatever the thing is. Maybe it's to buy the house or to have the car or to whatever, have the jet. What is that big desire? It's probably something that's significant and means the world to you. Now, I want you to imagine literally everybody but maybe 2 or 3 people in your entire life telling you there is no fucking way that's happening. You're not smart enough. You're not equipped enough. You're not skilled enough. You don't have what it takes to have that thing, to make it happen. And I want you to think about this being told to you from the time you were about 5 or 6 years old all the way through your entire life. People of significance, people of influence in your life. That's what I had to deal with. This dream of becoming a U.S. Navy pilot was all I could think about growing up. The summers were consumed with going to air shows and doing all the stuff, seeing the air shows with not just the Blue Angels, just other, military aviators flying and doing cool stuff. I thought, man, that is it, bro. That is the epitome of success. That's what I wanted from life. But when you've got teachers and coaches and friends and very close family members that are telling you there's no way, especially because I was diagnosed with ADD. And I got to tell you, back in those days, they didn't know what that was. They didn't know how to deal with it. And so there were a lot of weird stigmas attached to that. And I had to block that noise out. Now, obviously, for those of you who have followed me long enough, you know that I went on to become a Navy pilot. I overcame all of that shit, went to high school, barely graduated, went off to the Navy and applied 6 different times to the Navy's different programs to become an officer and then to go off to flight school. And all 6 times the U.S. Navy rejected me. The U.S. Navy told me I wasn't worth what they were looking for. Sometimes the criticism was really harsh coming from them. The feedback in my denial letters was like, dude, you're not what we're looking for. And my point to all of this is not to play some woe is me story. The simple point is that the path to excellence is sometimes a very, very rocky, steep path. Sometimes there is no path. You look at it and you're like, there's no trail. So you have to carve one. It's not even through a forest. It's up a rocky mountain. And sometimes you're climbing boulders and you're avoiding rock falls. There's all kinds of things that feel like the forces of nature are working against you. Guess what? That's leadership. And for those entrepreneurs out there, you already know this. That's part of the journey of being an entrepreneur. Setting simple goals is not going to get it done. And the reason is it's very easy to negotiate with yourself in those tough times, the dark hours, that this isn't meant to be. Those voices from those influential people in your life telling you to quit it, to get a job, to drop the dream, they start to become very, very alluring. they start to become very convincing. And if you are not on the path and you don't have it set as a true mission, it's very easy to drop out. One thing that I'm very grateful for is my military service, not because it's something to be proud of, which it is, but it's something that taught me so much about the discipline required, the teamwork required, and more specifically, the personal excellence that we all had to have as individual members of the team in order to accomplish the mission. We did not set goals. We declared missions. You have to define what you want as a mission. So, of course, I'm telling this story several times as I'm building my speaking career and had people in my coaching business, my coaching clients. One time, one person said, you know what, JT, you are my personal mission accomplishment expert. And I thought that was pretty cool. Now, I don't prefer the word expert. She said that, I didn't. Personal mission accomplishment specialist work better. So mission accomplishment specialist sort of became my brand, if you will, my tagline for that. But now I take it much more further. I take it more seriously because it's about helping you do the same thing. The multi-million-dollar shift that you can make, whether you're trying to make a multi-million dollars or not, whether you're trying to just have a multi-million-dollar level life, whether that's your fitness, your health, your relationships, or maybe it is a business, maybe it is a financial particular thing that you're shooting at, is to stop thinking about it as a goal and start approaching it as a mission. Now, what's the difference? Goals are negotiable. Hey, man, I set a goal to lose a certain amount of weight by a certain amount of time. Well, if you fall a little bit behind that, no biggie. You just get back on the horse. And if over time you start to say, you know what, I'd rather have the hot fudge sundae as opposed to the hot yoga session, all of a sudden you start to negotiate your way out of that hard workout and into the soft living. That's what a goal does for you. But when it becomes a mission, all of a sudden you start approaching it with a higher level of commitment, with much more conviction, because you attach much more to it. So what does that look like? Let's talk about a little bit of framework here to help you shift from making goals and instead start accomplishing missions. For those of you that have followed the podcast long enough, you know I talk about the big four: values, vision, mission, and purpose. I talked about it even in the last podcast episode, right? Let's talk about mission for a second. A mission is going to be something that's got a finite beginning and ending, meaning this isn't necessarily, hopefully, not the rest of your life. Hopefully you live way past the mission itself. Now, the mission can be several years, maybe even a couple of decades long, like it was for me. But my point is that there is a start and end point to it. You have to be prepared for that, and you have to know that going into it. Because what happened for me was I did accomplish my mission. I did become a naval aviator on September 7th, 2001, 4 days before the tragedy of 9/11. The sad part is that when I woke up on September 8th, 2001, I had two things. One, a raging hangover because my brother was in town and we celebrated getting my wings. And two, the realization that was it. I had spent my whole life trying to prove the world wrong and prove myself right to accomplish this thing that was my mission. But I didn't have something next. And I went into a slight depression. I won't get into that today, but I want to just share with you, it's super important to know that there's going to be an end to every single mission. You have to be prepared for that so that you can connect the next thing to it. You don't have to know what the next thing is. You don't have to know what the next mission is, nor do you have to plan it out and map it out before you start this one thing at a time. But please know that every mission does come to an end, and it's extremely important for the leader and the mission commander, which is who you are, that's your role in this, to have that clear in mind at some point toward the middle or the end of the mission that you're on. So what defines a mission? What makes it something separate than a goal? A goal is, of course, like most people call it, SMART goal: specific, measurable, actionable, I think is what the A stands for, realistic, which is my least favorite one, and time sensitive or time specific, right? Well, there's some truth to that and some application to that when it comes to being a mission. You have to have externally verifiable metrics that you're shooting for. In other words, you want to have something that you can point at and say, we're on track. We're on mission. We're making this thing happen. Now, when we accomplished some of the missions that I did, like I'll just use this for instance, if we were going to do a training mission, let's say our job was to go up and execute a few maneuvers and then go out and do, let's say 10 or 15 touch and goes and then return to base safely. That was the mission. Seems simple, right? But there were specific things. We had to execute a specific maneuver list, engine shutdowns, engine out procedures, approach to stall, those kinds of things to keep yourself proficient. And then, of course, do the touch and goes at a runway at some place that we had already designated and set into our flight plan. Those were very specific things. And we knew that we were going to have a specific takeoff time, a specific landing time. And of course, mission accomplishment was defined by returning home safely and bringing the aircraft back in one piece. In your business, you have to start thinking about what you can missionize. I just made that word up. I know it's not a real word. Don't look it up and don't come at me with your grammar police. All right. The point is that start thinking in terms of what it is right now you can turn into a finite mission between now and let's say the end of the year or the end of the month or whenever you're listening to this. Start thinking about what it is that's mission specific, something that's going to help you accomplish the big vision in your life. What is going to be something that you can start addressing a mission type approach to? My mission is to sell 10 homes if you're a real estate agent by a certain amount of time. And the specific homes are in this specific area, these specific listings, whatever. Maybe it's just to attain 10 listings. I'm using this if you're a real estate agent. Maybe if you're a fitness instructor, maybe it's to help 15 new clients lose their target weight within 90 days of signing up with you. I don't know. I'm just using these as specific examples. All of a sudden, these don't become goals. They become missions. Now, you might go, but JT, that just feels like a goal. Get to the mission piece. We're getting there. As soon as you have it defined and you've got those barriers, those kind of bookmarks, if you will, the start, the end time, and then the specific metrics in between. Now what you have to do is come up with the 4 things that you're going to need: time, money, assets, and people. Now, let's talk about this. How much time is required? Not just your start and end date, but the specific amount of time in between. Is this a 40-hour a week type approach, 60, 70-hour a week? Is this your full-time gig? Or is this a part-time thing? Is this something like you're learning the piano or the guitar after work every night, but you're going to apply 2 or 3 hours a night to it 5 days a week? How many days a week? What days are they? Time is a very unique thing because it's specific to us as human beings. It's a construct. We get to create that. So you have to define all of the different parts of that as it applies to a mission in order to accomplish the mission. Not just how much time from start to finish. You want your target end date. When is the celebration going to be? Then you have to kind of either reverse engineer or forward engineer, whichever works. Sometimes you can do both and figure out what are the different little time gates that are going to be required, little checkpoints in time in order to hit specific parts of that. Get your first client or your first listing by a certain date. Get the thing on the market. Have the first opening or the first showing or whatever that thing looks like, and start thinking about that strategically so that you can start building it out to be a mission. What's the purpose of doing all that? Like, what do you benefit from? Well, number one is it gives you clarity. It causes you to think and focus only on what's important instead of having your phone on you all the time and worrying about what's going on with social media or what's going on in the world or what's going on with politics. All of that shit becomes irrelevant because the only thing that matters is the mission. When I was on deployment, we had no idea what was going on back home, more or less. Nowadays, those guys probably do because they got access to the internet like we never did. I kind of knew what was going on with my beloved Seattle Seahawks. But mostly, I was out of the loop. I didn't know the day-to-day stuff. I just wasn't into it because the mission was so important. It was so forefront. So you have to develop that level of focus for yourself if you want to accomplish your mission. The time, when we're talking about time, money, assets, and people, the time is really specific because it's your start and end, but then you also have to know how much time you can actually allot to this thing. Is it your full-time gig or is it a part-time thing? That's going to be important. How much time per day, how many days a week, and what days specifically are you working it? Are you working it 7 days a week? Are you only working it on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday? What does that look like for you? Get very specifically clear. Make sure you've got that lined out and scheduled on a calendar. Now let's talk about money. What's it going to require for this to happen? You got your time, which is the single most important asset. Now we're talking about the money required. Is this going to be your money that you're putting up front out of pocket? Are you going to need to get financing? Are you going to need to get a backing supporter? Are you going to need an angel investor, for instance? Are you going to need some venture capital to get this thing off the ground? If so, how much? You got to be thinking in terms of what's required and having that financial number in place. And let me just say this about that. I could talk all day about your mental and emotional approach to money. The crazy thing about money, unlike time, is people have a tendency to hang on to and get emotionally attached to their fucking money more so than they do the use of their time. People will not hesitate to piss away an hour of their night watching some bullshit on Netflix, for instance. But the instant you take $1,000 out of their bank account, or the instant they lose $1,000 because their ad didn't work out, they freak out without realizing that, hey, they probably could have earned $1,000 in an hour just like that if they'd have been a little bit more focused. So the hour spent is not the part that they get stressed about. It's the money they lost. Money is such a visceral resource because we attach it to survival. And so naturally the limbic brain goes into high drive because we don't have saber-tooth tigers killing us, coming after us, attacking us, hunting us down. We don't have the typical physical threat that we used to have way back in the early parts of our development as a species. But we still have that part in the back of our brain, don't we? We still have that part that tells us that we're in danger when we're really not, when something like money becomes scarce. Automatically, we start thinking, I don't have enough money. I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. I'm not going to be able to pay for my mortgage or my rent. I'm going to get kicked out and be living outside in the forest, right? I'm not going to be able to eat. I'm going to starve to death. I'm going to look bad. All these things create undue stress. If we just slowed down and thought critically about it for 2 seconds and got resourceful, which is what one of the main aspects of the true driven philosophy is, resourcefulness is the answer to about 90% of your problems. And resourcefulness, as you guys know, if you went through true driven, is predicated on curiosity, getting curious and thinking critically about what we need to actually create a solution to the problem. So when we're talking about money, if you're accomplishing a mission, if you're making this not a goal, but a mission, if you're going to actually attack this thing with that level of conviction and commitment that a mission requires, you have to be clear on the financial requirements to make it happen and be able to detach emotionally enough to be able to think logically and critically about what that money looks like, the required things that you're going to need, how much you're probably going to need. And you may need about 20% more than you think. There's an old saying, you guys have probably heard it. It wasn't me who said it. I just picked it up. Especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, it's likely going to take longer than you thought, and you're probably going to have to work harder than you ever imagined. The other caveat to that is it's going to cost you about 20% more than you think. And I only say that because we have a tendency to underestimate these things, and we have those little gotcha surprises that come up, and all of a sudden you're like, fuck, I need more money. So time, money, assets. Now, when I say assets, don't get all crazy with me and go, well, according to Robert Kiyosaki, an asset is okay, stop. What I'm talking about is the equipment, the stuff you need. Hey, man, for some people, all you need is a laptop and an internet connection, and you're in business. Good for you. Maybe you do need a office space. Maybe you do need some area where you can set up gym equipment. Maybe you do need some place where you can play with your rock and roll or your heavy metal band that you won't get arrested or have the neighbors calling you. I don't know, but this is important. If it is your mission, you've got to get clear on the necessary equipment, the necessary stuff in order to accomplish the mission. So when we talk about assets, that's what we're talking about. And finally, the single most important resource of all these four is people. Not just the who, but the specific roles. Now, maybe you need an attorney. Maybe you need a CPA. Maybe you need somebody who can balance your books. Maybe you need somebody who's a talent agent. Maybe you need, an executive assistant. You need that role, but then you got to start thinking about the specific individual who you'd love to have fill that spot. Characteristics, behaviors, their values, their vision, Have them be able to buy into your mission. Are they purpose driven? That type of thing. So when it comes to creating a mission and defining the mission and actually coming up with a mission plan, you definitely need to come up with those 4: time, money, assets, and people. Get super clear on that. Big differentiator between a mission and a goal. A goal, yeah, you're getting clear on it. You might think about this, but it's always negotiable. You can always back out of it. With a mission, now we apply this last piece, and that is the non-negotiable. This is happening. Here's the thing, gang. You either do it or you don't. I don't know how else to say this. There's plenty of people out there that will cite like every single statistic on the planet. They will be happy to tell you that 95% of small businesses fail within the first 5 years. They will be happy to tell you that this type of business or this type of industry is more or less bulletproof against a recession or a depression or whatever. They'll be happy to tell you that we're in one or we're not in one. Who fucking cares? All that matters is that you have a sense of mission. You have made it a non-negotiable. This is fucking happening. With or without you, I'm doing this. That's got to be where you come from as the leader. That's fucking leadership 101. If you don't have that same level of conviction, nobody else will. You can't expect somebody to rescue you. You can't expect motivation to be your driving force in life. You have to have the discipline. You have to have the conviction. When you have those two things in place, those are observable behaviors. Those are character traits that other people will see in you. They will align with that. They'll get behind you. They'll support you. Sometimes they will be the person that writes you the check that you need. Sometimes they will be your first customer. Sometimes they will be the one person, the fucking one person that will hold the umbrella for you in the rainstorm of shit when everything else has gone wrong. They will not leave your back. They don't do it just because they love you. They don't do it just because they believe in you. They do it because you had the ability to communicate the mission. And if you can't do that, that's the first place to start. If you want to know what the difference between a mission and a goal is, that's one of the most important parts of it right there. The ability to be all in. No matter fucking what. I'm doing this. It doesn't matter how bad it gets. It doesn't matter how good it gets. By the way, you might think, oh man, I'm going to have to buckle down. I'm going to have to be locked in. I'm going to have to be focused for when the hard times hit. The answer is yes. But wait, there's more. Wait until things are going fucking awesome. Wait until you're on top of the world. Wait until you've got a ton of momentum. Wait until the sun's shining, the bank account is full, life is good, and you want to take a day off at that critical phase. You want to have a little cheat day right before the competition. You want to take a little bit of time just to hang out with your homies before the big launch. Be careful, because as tempting and as seductive as those moments might be, those are the pitfalls of leadership. Those are the burdens of leadership. Those are the parts that make the big difference between a mission and a goal. Because a mission-driven person will acknowledge those things. They'll say yes, but not yet. They'll say, I can't wait because soon I'll be able to do those things, but not today. Goal person, you know what? We'll just push it off because it's just a goal. Right? I mean, 80% of goals fail anyway, so let's just throw it in. We'll try again tomorrow. A mission, when you're on a mission, it is non-negotiable. This is fucking happening. That is a very awesome, attractive behavior to have. That is the behavior of a leader. That is the behavior of a true driven. Are you going to be seen as a psychopath at times by the unmotivated? Of course. Are you going to seem as if you're obsessed by those folks who believe that everything should be all about work-life balance and you should be happy and peaceful and joyful all the time? Of course. Are you going to look like somebody who probably needs a little bit of therapy? Nothing wrong with therapy. My point is this. What's most important to you? Is it important to always be comfortable, to always fit in? Is it important to you to have the best of life all the time? Or is it possible that you can give a short burst of time of 100% of your best effort, your best focus, your best commitment, and the highest level of conviction you can to something that's so important that it could change your life, potentially change other people's life for a period of time so that you can accomplish that mission? If you're in that second category, then you, my friend, have what it takes to go from goal setting to mission accomplishment. You don't have to be a military aviator to get this. You don't even have to have ever served in the military at all. The idea is to have a much clearer sense of what you want, to be strategic in how you structure the plan to make it happen, to be 100% non-negotiably in, and to have the conviction to follow through in not just the tough times, but those seductive good times that tell you it's time to take your foot off the gas pedal and give yourself a break. If you can get through those times, my friend, you can accomplish anything. And that's the difference between mission accomplishment and simple goal setting. We'll talk more about this, and I'll be training more on this later, but I wanted to give you guys a taste of what this looks like. And for those of you who have built that multi-million dollar lifestyle, for those of you who have built that high performance lifestyle, you know what I'm talking about. And maybe you need this as a tune-up and to sharpen the blade. Congratulations for investing in yourself and doing that. Most important thing, guys, is this. If it is important enough to pour any of your time into, realize that that's time of your life that is being taken away from the people you care about, the hobbies, the things you love to do. So if you're going to do something, fucking do it. Navy SEALs have a great saying, anything worth doing is worth overdoing. Moderation is for cowards. I love that. And really, basically, it speaks to the true driven ethos. It is about mission. It is about mission accomplishment. It doesn't make you crazy. It doesn't make you obsessive. It doesn't make you unhealthy. It makes you special. It makes you unique. It makes you driven. And yes, there will be plenty of time to recharge the batteries, plenty of time to sit on the beach and soak up the sun and drink the margaritas. There'll be plenty of time for that. But when you're on the mission, baby, it's all about that fucking mission. It's all about the mission and the crew you're on. Those are the two most important things. And here's the little spoiler alert. The part you're going to love the most is you're going to find it one night when you're working your ass off, long after all the other lights in the building are off. Long after everybody's already gone, when everybody's at the bars or at the ball game or whatever it is they do to unload the stress of their miserable lives. You're going to be in it. The dark hours, the unrewarding hours, the hours where nobody's cheering you on, nobody's encouraging you, nobody's sending you the I got you text. Those hours, the lonely ones. Those are the ones where you will look back and know that you fucking earned every single ounce of the victory that is to come. And the good news is, part of the victory, the sweetest part of the victory, is happening right in that moment. Because you are forging the character of a true driven. You are forging the character of a leader. That's what it means to accomplish the mission. My encouragement to you, stop fucking setting goals. Start accomplishing missions. Setting a goal is great. Accomplishing a mission is life-changing. You get to choose. I suggest you choose the one that's the most rewarding, the most fulfilling, and start accomplishing your missions today and every single day. And if there's anything I can do to support you along the path, just know I got your 6. Let's go fucking do this. All right, my friends, that's it for today's episode. Remember, you can follow us on Spotify, Apple iTunes, or Apple Podcasts, or whatever it's called. And of course, right here on YouTube. And remember, no matter what course you fly in life, fly high, fly fast, fly far, stay driven.